Hi guys, this is Wayne from Goodman Photography. So thanks to my friend Jeff, we've got the 70-200 from Sony today. It's an f4 lens, and I'm surprised at sort of how light it is and how compact it is for such a a wide zoom range and such a high quality lens. I'm going to be doing some focus tests, and we'll also do some image tests where we look at sharpness and how the lens performs in general on the Sony A7R2. Okay, so we've got the 70-200 here linked up to the A7R2. This is the Sony f4 zoom lens, and I've got two trees. I've got one within a couple of meters of us, and also a tree further in the distance, about 20 meters away, which I'm going to use as the two focusing points. I'm just going to switch the lens now to manual focus so we can get it to its closest focusing distance out of focus there, as you can see. And if I now switch that back to AF, this is at 70mm, and I'm going to hit the shutter button. So 3, 2, 1. So very quick there, probably less than a second to achieve focus in a closer environment. I'm now going to stick it back into manual mode, and we'll go to furthest focusing distance. So again, it's out of focus. Put it back into AF. 3, 2, 1. So again, even from the furthest focusing distance, a nice quick focus achievement there. So this is still at 70mm. I'm now going to move it to a different tree. That tree there, which we have in the centre of the screen, hope there's not too many reflections for you. There we go. So that is now about 20 meters away from us. I'm going to just stick that into manual focus, and we'll put that onto the closest focusing distance, back into AF, and just make sure that the focus, there we go. So I'm going to do a focus test. So 3, 2, 1. So nice and quick again. It's a very fast lens this, and we'll do back into manual focus and furthest focusing distance now at infinity, back into AF, and 3, 2, 1. There we go. I'm now going to stick it back into AF, and we'll go to 200mm, and that there you can see now basically fills the frame of the closest focus tree. So we'll just get it right to closest focus distance, back to AF, and 3, 2, 1. So that's 200mm with a subject only really a couple of meters in front of us, and it looks very well focused. There's no issue whatsoever that I'm seeing. And then we'll head back over to the other tree, which is there. Back to manual focus, get that to its closest focusing distance, back to AF, and 3, 2, 1. And again, no issues whatsoever. Okay, so I've got some images here from what we took today. There were basically, test shots involved here. They're nothing that they're gonna, there's nothing I'd be able to sell or post in a gallery by any means, but at the same time these should hopefully give us an idea of how the lens performs. So at the minute I've got profile correction enabled. So if you don't know what that is, in Lightroom, basically every lens that is supported by Lightroom has a profile correction option, which basically Lightroom then automatically adjusts the image to suit that lens. So they've tested the lens probably in a laboratory or type of condition, and then they've determined that there's so much light fall off in the corners, there's so much distortion, blah blah, and basically you press one button here and you go from that, which is the original image where we have the dark corners here and perhaps a little bit of distortion somewhere that it may pick up on. If we click that, you see things just stretch a little bit at the sides, and we have lighter corners. So for all these images, I've basically left the profile correction off, so we get to see how it performs as a raw image. and obviously should you not like the vignette in certain images, you would just hit that, and that would mostly alleviate any of those issues, if you want to call them issues. So sharpness in the center seems absolutely brilliant. Nothing wrong with that at all. We can read the engravings on the bolts even, and yeah, it's a very nice sharp lens, definitely in the center without a doubt. There's no point in really looking too much in the corners here for softness, because everything's on a different plane really in this image. So for starters, the bike's on an angle anyway, so I don't know if that gives a truly technical demonstration of how sharp this lens is from corners to center. Let's hit this image here. So we have this one is at f4, and we can see here center sharpness again, just like that. Render in a second. Sorry, my laptop is being extremely slow. Okay, so you can see that the background already falls off, and this must be sort of centimeters behind this bolt here. So f4 can still give you a nice decent background blur, which you'll see in another couple of images in a moment. This was a f4, and we've got the same histogram going as the next image, which is f9. So therefore, although they weren't on a tripod in super scientific conditions, both these images are very comparable. And what I did notice was that this sign down here, this triumph sign, was on a similar focal plane to, say, where the bolt ended up. As you can see, they're both in the sun, so they were both about sort of the same level, and therefore I would have expected, even though it's down in the corners, I would have expected to see a nice sharp triumph sign. So we have a nice sharp center, and then remember this is at f9. Come back out and go down to the triumph logo, and it's not super sharp, it's a bit soft, which I was surprised at, but I don't think this would cause you any problems in general terms, but I just noticed this when I was sort of pixel peeping before, which is not something I recommend doing, because it costs you a lot of money, because you're like, oh, that lens is better than that lens, and therefore I will pixel peep and spend loads of money. Heading on to this lens, so this shows you f4. These people here were sat behind these branches, probably a couple of meters in the distance, not too far, and you can see we've got a nice background blur, nice soft focus, so a decent performer there if you're going to be using it. I know for portraits or just general blurring of background shots, it's rendered everything very nicely without a doubt. And if we hit that, you can see again the darker corners are, and also if you notice, it just sort of like stretches the image a little bit, so there is just a little bit of distortion, but nothing major at all. Again, another shot just to quickly show the bokeh. We can see I focused on here, which so there we go, that's just gone sharp, that's just rendered, and already by here we are starting to see the background fall off. So we don't have many options with Sony. Certainly the FE mount, this is the only 70-200 I believe, and it's an f4, and some people would obviously want an f2.8. I actually used the Canon f2.8 at the weekend, and it was fantastic, but I think considering this is the only option with an f4, it's really not going to cause too many problems, I don't think, for a lot of people. Another one here I've not adjusted. Obviously any of these images I want them straight out of the camera. I do turn all my contrast down on the camera, so don't particularly look at the image as an image. This is just for testing. I did take some others which I would probably keep, but that wasn't really what the afternoon was about. It was about meeting up with a friend and just trying out a different lens on the A7R2. Another bokeh sort of a image, because we can see here everything here is nice and out of focus, everything here is nice and out of focus, but everything here is nice and sharp. And this was me sat at a table at 70mm. I actually for some reason ended up at f4.5, not f4, so we could have even blurred it more. And this sign here was probably, I don't know, only really probably about the minimum focus distance of the lens, which I believe is of just about a metre. So a nice performance, you know, considering it's a 70-200 zoom and you're sat at a table and still able to take a picture of something on the table. Head to here, this gives us another idea of centre sharpness, which is clearly very good when it renders. There's also very little aberrations going on, you know, anything like that. I'm not seeing too much of an issue. The contrast could maybe be better, but like I say, I turned that down in my images, so you know, just playing about with that, we should be able to improve it. You can see there, while I'm zoomed in, if I hit the enable profile correction, you'll actually see the distortion being taken out of the image, so it does sort of like crop in a little bit. And if we zoom back out, you can see there it zooms in and also lightens the corners again. So, you know, but I think actually that image there, you're not going to notice the distortion, and the corners actually sort of help your eye center on the sign anyway, if that's what you were trying to do. So it's not always a bad thing. This was to test the flare of the lens, which you can see it's done pretty well. This was shot into the sun, you know, and there's no issues there. It was a hard image to expose, obviously, because when you've got things directly in the sunshine, but you know, it's done a remarkable job, really, that lens, and obviously the camera as well. We could easily play about with that and, you know, and get everything looking a lot better. That's certainly a lot better than I could see with my eye, because I was having to really squint. It was a very low, very bright sun. And that concludes all the images that I took today. So okay, so what do I think of the Sony A7R2 in the short period of time that I've been able to use it this afternoon? Well, I'm very impressed. We've looked at the images, and obviously we've seen that centre sharpness is absolutely fantastic at any aperture, even f4, really, really good. Corners do seem to be sometimes a bit soft, but I'd need to do more testing with that, and I'm not seeing anything that's terrible, so I really don't think it would cause any problems. From other reviews I've read that, you know, corner sharpness is fine, so you know, like I say, more testing is needed there. The main things for me though is I've just come from a wedding this weekend, and I was trying the A7R2 with the Canon option of 70-200, which was the version 2 of the f2.8. It's a big, heavy lens, that Canon lens, without a doubt. It's I don't know the exact weight comparisons, but what I do know is that there is no way on earth you would ever feel secure holding the grip of your A7 series camera just as a normal camera, and then Metabones adapter, and then the Canon lens. You would never be able to hold it. You would feel like it's just going to fall off and snap your camera to bits. It just literally doesn't feel right. If you hold it, you know, where you've got the lens in one hand, camera grip in the other, it's absolutely fine. I didn't find it got too heavy, but you know, there's just a balance thing going on. So what I would say is the Sony lens is a totally different proposition. First of all, it's f4, so of course it's going to be lighter, but not only is it lighter, it's much more compact, and on the A7 series cameras it feels absolutely brilliant. It's perfectly balanced. I'd be surprised if it doesn't weigh a similar amount to the body, because it's not front heavy at all. If you hold it, it just, although it's a heavier lens than, you know, say a normal prime or whatever, it just feels fantastic in the hand. So really, it's you know, Sony have clearly thought about the design of the lens. It's not you know, it's not been thought about that, oh, we're going to have the best portrait zoom lens ever made. It's been thought of, well, basically people are going to want 70-200, they're going to want optical stabilisation, they're going to want weather sealing, and f4 is probably fine for most people, because as you've seen with the images, we've been able to blur the backgrounds today, no issue, and it's a nice background blur as well. So it's a good optical performance, and the weight and the size matches up to the A7 series perfectly. go as far as saying that if you even have like a small carry bag, which I do, like a shoulder bag, you'd quite easily be able to add that to your normal kit, you know, even as a travel photographer. It suddenly makes, you know, that possible, whereas the Canon, unfortunately, just isn't, it's not going to be possible. So, you know, although yes, I'm sure if you're willing to carry a big backpack on your back all day, but it's just a totally different thing. It weighs a lot more, the Canon. The Sony weighs just a really good amount of, you know, it's a really balanced dimension versus weight scenario. The zoom ring feels nice. It's a little bit stiff, I noticed, but it's not terribly stiff. It's a good, you know, good solid feeling. Focusing, I did use the manual focus at some point, just to during the focus tests, as you saw, and it gives it, you know, it does feel actually like a manual feel. So not it, although it's probably fly by wire, it does actually feel more of a manual focus lens feel to it than you would expect. It's bright white, so it attracts attention. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I was walking, we only went to a cafe and everyone was looking at that lens. It was certainly something that caught people's attention. 7200, is it right for you? It's great for portraits. It's great for, I would say, if you go to, say, a motorsport event, which I sometimes do, and you are close to the circuit. If, like we did a couple of weeks ago, we went to the Belgian Grand Prix, and you've got loads and loads of beer-laden people in front of you, and you're trying to get that shot, then you're probably not going to. You're probably going to need more reach. I mean, I took the equivalent of 640mm lens set up with me, and that was just about enough. So 200 obviously is maybe not so good when it comes to things like that. But obviously with something like the A7R2, you can crop hugely and not worry too much about resolution. So that might be something to consider as well. I've not looked into whether there's any sort of extenders, such as like 1.4 times or 2 times. I think there might be a 1.4 times extender, which would be obviously good. But then I haven't tried that on the camera, but I doubt it would affect the focusing performance too much. Onto focusing, it's fine. It's not the fastest I've ever seen, but for a sort of larger zoom, it's a, you know, on a par with the best of them, I'd say. Locks on quickly. It's always been accurate. I think there was one image I tried where it wasn't accurate. Did it again and it caught focus. The focus test that I did, you'll see they're actually, well, I don't know if it comes across on the video, but they were in a darker environment. I purposely chose those because lenses always struggle more, obviously, in a darker environment. So it was like a shaded woods on a sunny day. So it wasn't dark by any means, but certainly if I would have done it about 100 meters behind me, then yeah, it would have been a much brighter scenario, and therefore I would have expected a much better performance. I did actually briefly try that, and the results seemed very similar. So to be honest with you, I think it's just a lens that just generally performs well on everything: focus, image quality, size, weight. I guess the only thing it's really got against it is its price, because here in the UK it's going on for about £1,000, which for its specification, you know, I mean, it's I suppose it's not too bad, but it is a lot of money for any lens, £1,000. So therefore it should be as good as it is. But you know, I really do believe it lives up to its value, and it's you know, it's probably the best option that there is for the FE mount natively. There are other options. Obviously, you can, as we talked about, you can actually, you know, mount sort of a Canon lens now. You know, so if you wanted extra reach, there's a 100 to 400 Canon. There's a 100 to 400 Sony, you know, which is an A mount. So you can get the, I think it's called the LAEA3 adapter or something along those lines. With the A7R2, that will still give you phase detection, and if you want phase detection on other cameras, I think it's the LAEA4. So you'd need to look into those, but there are adapters that allow you to use so Sony lenses from the Alpha series on the FE mount. So you know, there are other options. Don't just think this is your only option. But as a FE option, as a native lens to this system, it's brilliant. Like I say, it matches the A7R2 absolutely perfectly, and I'm sure the A7, the A7 II, A7S and whatever else. So overall, very impressed. I could recommend this lens to anybody if you're doing, you know, various types of photography that require telephoto. I'm sure you'd be pretty impressed with it. So thanks for watching. Please leave comments on my videos if you have any ideas. If you're going to leave a thumbs down for the video, then tell me why, you know, so I can help to improve it. But if you do like the video, which I hope you do, please do leave a thumbs up, because that's always good to see. It gives me incentive to keep making these videos. I do have some others lined up, so make sure you subscribe, because then you'll actually be notified when those videos come online. So thanks for watching and have a great day.